viewers, good evening and praise the Lord. My name is Obed Wanjala and this is Upgrade. Your favorite program brings you conversations that have been of great value and importance in your spiritual walk. Tonight we are continuing with part 2 of the subject we started last week, which was biblical servanthood. We appreciate the panel for the kind of input they did to our understanding in explaining to us the facts about servanthood. And we were edified and built up in that conversation last week. We pick it up on part 2 tonight, and so you can invite your family and your friends and make them benefit from this conversation. It's interesting to see what is happening here because it is redefining a number of things in our service to the Lord Jesus Christ. And this is a very critical subject, especially in church today, where emphasis is on other things as opposed to serving the Lord. And so thank you so much for being here, and I welcome you into this program. And on my left is Apostle Peter Akek of the Pioneer Apostolic Ministries International.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to have you.
I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And on my right is Apostle William Omole of Hope Christian Community Church, based in Syokimau.
Thank you for having me, sir.
It's always a joy.
It's a pleasure. Looking forward for a great conversation again.
Amen.
Cheers.
Now, viewers, last week we stopped at a very critical stage where Apostle Peter was giving us biblical examples of servanthood. And Apostle, I still remember you were on your second best example in the Old Testament, and you were talking about Abraham and
His servant.
his servant.
Abraham's servant. In Genesis 24,
Yes, sir.
he's sent to go and get a wife for Abraham's son Isaac.
Yes, sir.
When he is asked, who are you? What's your name? Genesis 24:34, he says, my name is Abraham's servant.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Powerful.
My name is Abraham's servant. I am Abraham's servant. What's your name? My name is Abraham's servant.
Powerful.
And you look at that servant, everything that Abraham asked him to do, he did to the letter. He crossed every T and dotted every I in the instructions that Abraham gave him.
Wow.
That is service, selfless service. And if we can all serve the purposes of God that way, we will succeed to bring a bride prepared for Christ and present to him.
Wow.
Servanthood is the means by which the bride is received and presented to Christ.
Yes.
That's what we see there.
The bride being the church.
The bride being the church.
But how do we achieve this in modern society where the servant has raped the bride?
That's very unfortunate. He's not only done so, but he's taken the wealth of his master Abraham and converted to his own wealth. Remember, that
Serious.
servant had access to all the wealth of Abraham. And he carried as much as he wanted.
Yes, yes.
Provided you don't come back without
Without.
the lady. But he said, but if the lady refuses, then you are free from this oath. But do everything. So he carried everything that he would need to entice, to win the heart, to beautify, to decorate, to bless the family of the lady, to make sure that he presents to the son of his master the bride of his choice. We must be careful as servants. We do not own the bride.
Yes.
We must be careful how we touch somebody's wife. We must be careful how we talk to somebody's wife.
Present her whole.
Present her whole, blameless, glorified, decorated, happy, rejoicing. And spend the wealth of the master, our great God and Lord, creator of heaven and earth, on the bride. Let's not hold it unto ourselves.
But that is big sacrifice.
That's servanthood. Because you are at the disposal of the master to serve his will. A servant has got no will. He serves the will of his master. A servant has got no direction. He goes in the direction of the master. So Abraham chose for that servant where to go and how to approach it and come back.
And it was his choice to put to use the resources he's been given by the master.
Because servanthood is related with stewardship. Because at the point whereby you are sent on behalf of, you are trusted. And anytime you are trusted, you are entrusted with. So the servant could access all the wealth of Abraham. And Abraham knew this servant will use my wealth according to my will. And God will deny us nothing as long as God can trust us that we will use whatever he puts at our disposal according to his will.
Nothing becomes too good for a faithful servant.
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. So that's a very good example. And we said Joseph is a good example. And we come forward, we see Joshua. Joshua is a very good example of a servant serving Moses.
Moses, yes.
Very good example of a servant serving Moses.
Yes.
And following after the footsteps of his leader and doing what his leader is doing. And when the right time comes, it's the Lord who raises him up and puts him at the place of leading the nation and taking them over to the land. And he did everything according to what God said to Moses. That is servanthood.
In that story, we also see how God can promote a faithful servant.
That's right.
Because out of your faithful service, you have done it wholeheartedly, you come into a position of leadership.
And the Bible is not silent. The Bible says when Moses died, God spoke to Moses' assistant.
Yes.
The one who was serving him and helping
Yes.
him. That's the one God spoke to. He didn't speak to his brother or sister or wife. He spoke to the one who was serving Moses. So people who serve the leader God has given them faithfully with all their might, with all their hearts, there is a high percentage that God has them in line as next in line.
And I see Joshua coming into a place of leadership, and God trusts him with bigger responsibilities to an extent that he's the man that is charged with the responsibility of distributing and sharing the land.
He became the father.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
a father who gives inheritance to his children.
Wow.
So he became the father of the entire nation. That was big responsibility.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Where do we get such faithful servants?
We raise them, God makes them.
We raise them, God makes them.
Because we can only do so much. The rest, only God will help us with it. And you can find you've got 50 of them and only 2 or 3 of them turn out to be such kind of quality.
Thank you. Apostle, are we doing enough?
Well, it's not a problem that is beginning with us.
Okay.
The wisest man, Solomon, in the book of Proverbs 20 verse 6 asks, many men each will talk about their greatness, but a faithful man, where can you find?
Who can find?
And so it means that it is a challenge that comes with servanthood. And because one of the characteristics, as I hear Apostle mention the examples, one of the characteristics that comes tops of, that is required of us, and actually Paul puts it that way, it's required of
Every steward.
a steward to be found faithful. And so that is one of the requirements that is required in servanthood, faithfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, faithfulness has a lot to do with your attitude rather than what you're doing. Faithfulness has a lot to do with why you're doing whatever you're doing rather than what you're doing in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it for profit, then you will find ways of taking corners.
Yeah.
You will find ways of taking advantage. But if you're doing it for impact, for example, you're just loyal to your leader in that context, then you will realize that your focus, the interest that you will get from that becomes secondary. And it's unfortunate, that's why most of us who have been called into servanthood, we are not long-lasting. Because we get in there, and the push, the greatest push that we have is what are we going to get out of it? And I think that is what we were talking about in the last episode. What is there in for me? And so long as that is the driving force, then faithfulness is taken aback. Because so long as I can benefit, I don't have to be faithful. So long as I can take advantage. Because among the people that we're mentioning, including Joshua, he was not the only person.
Yeah. There were others.
He was amongst actually the 12 that were chosen from the leadership of Israel. But look, he stands out amongst them. And that is why one of the requirements of servanthood is faithfulness. I think in Luke 16, Jesus really describes in several dimensions. He says, he that cannot be faithful in the little
cannot be entrusted
cannot
with
be
much.
entrusted with much. So trust is earned. And what makes us earn trust is faithfulness. And so how am I handling the small responsibilities? How am I disposing myself in the positions which maybe there is no remuneration? How am I dealing with the people even when the conditions are not so conducive for me and they're not comfortable for me? Because it is a test. Sometimes God will send us into places, but the test is actually our faithfulness. And the test is always our next level. Before I push you to the next level, how would you react here?
Even in school,
School,
we do not get promoted to the next level until we have passed an exam of the previous level.
He has mentioned an example of Joseph, and that is what you see. Look at Joseph's consistency when he's in his father's house, when he's in Potiphar's house, when he's serving in jail, and finally when he is before Pharaoh. You consistently see faithfulness through his life. Joseph never served for he was not a man pleaser. He was not serving because the boss was looking at him. He was serving because there was a God up there that was looking at his service. Even when the conditions were very cruel to him. He has a dream. God spoke to him. He has a dream. But then instead of the dream seeming to be coming closer to realization, it is actually getting worse. And because he was faithful to God, he was also faithful to whoever he was serving under at any given moment. Whether he was in Potiphar's house, he was faithful to the boss. Because when we are faithful, we cannot say that we are faithful to God and we fail to be faithful to the immediate bosses. Because every authority comes from God.
Yes, sir.
It is God who has allowed those people to be in the positions where they are at. So there is no way we can say that we are faithful to God directly, but we fail to be faithful to the people that we are serving under. As a matter of fact, anytime God sends you to serve under someone, he is testing your faithfulness so that he can be able to see how you will behave when you have your own. Jesus puts it this way. How can you be faithful? Number one, he says, how can you be faithful if you're not faithful in that which is little? Number two, he says, if you're not faithful in that which belongs to another
Someone
man,
else.
you will never qualify to have that which belongs to you. You see, we keep saying promotion does not come from east or from west. Promotion comes from the Lord. I do believe one of the criteria that God checks before promoting anyone is how faithful we have been in our current state or in our current place. David would not be made king even though he had been anointed to be king until he served Saul faithfully. Joseph served Potiphar faithfully. So God was behind the scene orchestrating the events of his life. But one of the characteristics that was required was faithfulness.
Because the need for faithful servants is very much on demand.
It's on demand today.
Many people have been wounded because you trust somebody with certain responsibilities of service, and then they are not faithful.
You trust them with positions of service.
Then they are not faithful.
You trust them with your influence.
Yeah.
You trust them with your friends. And then the result speaks for itself. There's a lot of rebellion. There's a lot of people who have been betrayed. And it's because faithfulness is lacking in our service. Most of the people, I keep telling guys in our church, if you have to change your service because I came in, then faithfulness is lacking. Because faithfulness is doing everything in the eyes of God rather than in the eyes of men. Because if you can change because I arrived, then it means you're not afraid of God who was with you there even before I had arrived.
Wow.
And so that is why we miss it. People have missed out. There's a man of God who is one of friend. I heard his testimony. He was serving with a missionary. He was serving as one of the missionaries within his church. The Lord speaks to the missionary that you need to hand over the church to this young man. He does not know. So this man had given him access. He had given him access to everything. So he's going to America and he's going to stay there for a month. And he tells him, for whatever reason, please don't go to my wardrobe and don't open it. He had given him access. He would go in there. He would send him in there. And so the guy goes and stays in America for a month. So after a month, he comes back and he asks him the question, did you go to my bedroom? Say, of course, yes, I did. But did you open my wardrobe? I did not. What he did not know was that the man had tied an invisible rope on the wardrobe. So when he found that the rope had not been broken, he knew the man was faithful. Do you know what he told him? Now I can trust you.
Wow.
This is what he says. My entire destiny. That is Bishop Tudor Bismarck.
Okay.
He says, my entire destiny was actually lying on a rope. We lack people who are faithful today.
Is faithfulness the main component of servanthood, or there are others?
There are others.
Can you make mention of them?
Faithfulness is one of them.
Yes.
Excellence is another.
Wow.
Excellence is another.
You're making things complex.
Yeah, the ability, it's you know, when someone is operating with the spirit of excellence,
Yes.
you are not just doing the work, but you're doing the work well. It's just like they say here in Swahili, sio bora kazi, ni kazi bora. And you see, excellence is not just about the work.
Yes.
It's about the spirit. It's about the motive. It's about, I've given it a summary. Excellence includes hard work, head work, handwork, and all that is hard work. So we find people who want to do the work to finish, not to do the work
Well.
Look at the servant of Abraham. He didn't just want to get a wife to finish the assignment. He wanted to get the proper person that Abraham would have wished for as a wife for his son. That is the kind of attitude that we must have when we are engaging in the place of service. So that I'm not just doing ministry. If God has given me 5 people, it is my responsibility to labor so that every time I stand before those people, I do my best within my ability at any given time. That ought to be the spirit that we must have. And you look at Joseph, the same examples that the man of God has given. You would see that they were not working. Their standard was not being determined by the external forces. You see, someone who is operating with excellence, their standards are not determined by the forces that be. They have an internal standard, and that standard is being measured by God and his ethical work. So that I don't do it because of this is how we do it here. I do it because I know that God is finally the one who is coming to mark my work. Every work that I do is to give him glory. And so I must give it my all. And so that means that excellence, you see, something that begins from the heart, then it comes to the hands. I keep telling people, don't place your hands where your heart is lacking. Because anytime you put in your hands where your heart is lacking, then commitment will be lacking. And commitment is another characteristic of a servant. Because it is required for you to be faithful, you have to be committed.
Yes.
For you to be excellent, you have to be committed. And for you to be committed, you have to be faithful. And for you to be committed, you have to be excellent. And so these things work hand in hand. I have never seen a servant who pleases the master that was not committed.
Or able to deliver in absentia.
In absentia.
Commitment is key.
Commitment is key.
So you've said faithfulness.
Faithfulness.
You've said excellence. You've said committed.
Commitment.
These are 3 qualities or rather characteristics of a biblical servant. I want to turn to you, Apostle Peter. We are looking at the list of, and Apostle William has given us 3 characteristics of a biblical servant. He says emphasis is on faithfulness, excellence, commitment. Are there others that you can share with us?
Yes, fear.
Fear. Hey, Apostle. You are bringing in fear.
Yes, because Joshua told the children of Israel, you shall fear the Lord your God, and so shall you serve.
Okay. Fear.
Joseph told the wife of Potiphar,
Yes, sir.
whatever is in this house is under my care. In fact, your husband has no idea how much he owns. I do. Why would I do this thing before God? What's that?
Fear. Hey.
We are giving Joseph an example in the house of Potiphar. But
Yes.
what kept him?
Fear.
Apostle Omole said, if you change what you're doing when I arrive, then you're not a good servant, whatever. Because they don't fear God.
Very key.
Fear is important in serving.
Yes.
Must fear God. And that's why the word fear is used both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. You shall fear the Lord your God. So fear, there's the fear with which we fear hyenas. That's not what I'm talking about.
No, that's
I'm
different.
talking about the fear that makes us desire always to do what is right in His sight. Because we understand the awe of God. You know, it's to say God is awesome. When you say God is awesome, it is a sweet word. But when you say the awe of God, it's a dreadful word.
Yeah.
But you cannot have awesome without awe. You remember, I don't know where you grew up, but I grew up in a village.
Me too.
Where there were night runners.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes
We kept chasing them.
Yes, and sometimes we would notice one ran up a tree. So we would come with bigger spotlights, powerful ones. And men have machetes and rungus. And we say, we are going to bring down this man. And then the man would just jump from the tree down. And we just like statues, like we cannot move, we cannot talk. That is called awe. Now, that is the awe of the natural.
Yes.
Now, we say God is awesome. There is the awe of God. Now, that awe of God is what's called the fear of God.
Yes.
It makes us desire to do what is right in the presence of God.
Wow.
And that must be at the heart
Of servanthood.
servant. They must have a desire to do what is right. It may not be right in their eyes.
Yes.
But in your eyes, it is right. Because of the fear they have for you. It's not the fear that makes them run away from me and get scared. It's the fear that makes them desire always to do what is right. That's what keeps us in the presence of God.
And that is a major contributor to great leaders. Because if we are going to have men with that kind of fear, then we're going to have men and women who are rising into leadership, and they will deliver with the fear of God.
That's right. And we must teach the fear of the Lord, because revelation is always a key that opens the door for people to step into new things. If we don't understand the fear of the Lord, then they will not know how to walk in the fear of God in whatever they do. Do you know, human beings are not animals. We don't need a herder herding us everywhere we go, during the day, during the night. But the fear of God is our herder. The fear of God herds us. It watches over us wherever we go. And so we need to teach that to the people we are raising.
Yes, sir.
Teach them about the fear of God. Teach them to fear God. Teach them the benefits of fearing God. And teach them how to walk in the fear of God. You shall fear the Lord your God, and so shall you serve him.
Wow. Wow.
Serving God from a... If Saul feared God, he would not have cared what the people are saying. He would have kept the command of God to the letter. You see, if Judas feared God, he would not have betrayed Jesus. He would have said, I may be broke, I've got bills unpaid, I've got children with fees unpaid, but I'm not going to betray my Lord to get money for paying my bills.
Yes, sir.
If he feared God. You see, Jesus became the point of saying, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? You see, he didn't fear God at all.
Yes.
He could betray God in the presence of others with a kiss. He lacked the fear of God. Servanthood operates on the fear.
Yes.
On fear. It is what makes us worship God. The fear of the Lord is what makes us worship God. The fear of the Lord is what makes us obey God. The fear of the Lord is what makes us do his will.
Wow.
It's what makes us always desire to please him. And like I said, it's not the fear that ensnares and enslaves. It is not the spirit of fear that brings to bondage.
Yes.
It is the fear that seeks to please.
If I'm going to serve and the person or the master or the leader I'm serving is not pleased with what I do, what is the essence of my service?
I've lost the essence of my service.
Isn't it?
It's no longer essential.
Yes.
Yeah. And I will be dismissed.
I'm not needed
I will be not
because my master is not pleased.
That's right.
Fear.
Fear is important. And another thing is in service is called a listening ear. A listening ear. A listening ear is critical because a servant obeys. A servant does, but he obeys instructions. a listening ear. A listening ear. The ear that hears instruction. The ear that captures the entirety of the content of what was said. A listening ear is critical. And sometimes people are not serving well because they just didn't get it. They just did not get it. Yeah. They just didn't get it. So they're missing the point in practice, in implementation, because they didn't get the instruction clearly. The listening ear. That's why a servant must never be in a hurry to leave the presence of his leader.
Keep hearing.
Keep hearing. Listen more, talk less.
Talk less.
Listen more. Ask questions. Seek clarity. Make sure you got it well. Then move into it.
Talk to me about a servant who is very passionate but listens less and hears nothing of what you said.
It is what is called either youthfulness or recklessness. Because when passion is not tamed with order, accident is ahead. Have you seen that police thing? Accident ahead.
Yes.
Oh, you drive. Sometimes there's even no accident. They just
But
tell you there's a roadblock.
Yes.
But they put there's an accident ahead.
Yes.
When somebody is passionate and is not a good listener, there's an accident ahead. He will shipwreck himself. Why? Every ambition must be tempered with instruction. Every passion must be tempered with instruction.
My God.
If you're so passionate, you are ever willing, ever ready, but you are not keen to get it right, you are running on your own adrenaline.
Yes.
You are not taking instructions. You will cause a shipwreck. You will cause a disaster. In fact, you are not even part of the team. You are having a show for yourself. Energy is great, but when energy is not tamed and channeled well, it destroys. Like any form of energy. A river can flow so smoothly. You come by it, just the river flowing smoothly. But try to block that river. Then you are now ready to generate electricity.
Yeah. Because
You know that.
force
Because force is now
is going to come.
Yes, yes. There's going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
So when there is energy without ordering it, many things are going to happen. I would urge all of us that as we desire to be passionate about service, even walking the calling, because walking the calling is serving. Ministry is service. You know, we use the word ministry. I'm a minister, and we think we're using a big word. A minister is a servant.
Yes, that's true.
So muhuduma, mutumishi is same thing. So when we are in ministry, we need to not just have the ambition and the passion, but we also need to have a patience to receive the full instruction. Moses was so patient before God, seeking clarity on all that it entailed to go back and deliver the children of Israel from the house of bondage. And so that is very important. And sometimes I think it's the passion of the youth, and it's a sign of immaturity. Youth is always associated with immaturity, yet energy. And so it requires elders who have got wisdom to try to bring them to order and show them what to do, so that we are not only gathering momentum, we are not only reclaiming the land, but we are not destroying what we have already reclaimed.
Well, another big concern would be on people in church who are struggling to find a bearing for their service. They are in church, they love the Lord, but they have not yet found their place of service. What would be your advice on such a person?
I will advise them for free by giving them things that can help them identify their place of service.
Yes, sir.
One of them is passion. What is it that they desire to? You know, God packaged us in flesh, and so God can use us in any way to speak to us.
Sure.
Sometimes God just gives a desire for something.
Yes, yes.
So what is it that their hearts desire to do? They may not be good at it, but they are passionate about it. Now, when you're passionate about something, when you're not good at it, you will pay a price to get it right. When you are passionate about winning a race, even when you're not good at it, you will spend many hours training to win a race.
Yeah.
When you're passionate about preaching, you don't know how to preach, you will attend a Bible school, attend discipleship class to learn how to preach.
Yes.
What are you passionate about so that you can be molded to do it well? We are all raw materials until somebody came along and helped us to smoothen the rough edges to make us fit and do it well. And as he says, with excellence, do it better than before. So what are you passionate about? Number two, what is it that when it's not done well, you get exasperated? Because you are not the only person noticing it. And not everybody is getting exasperated when it's not done well. But you are. So look at that. Another thing is, what is it that you do with ease and you can do for nothing?
Okay.
You do with ease
And for
and you can
nothing.
do for nothing. What is it that gives you contentment when done well or when you do well? Because every service produces an inner contentment.
Yes.
I'm glad I did that.
I'm fulfilled.
I'm fulfilled. I'm done. I'm good. I'm happy. I can go home and now sleep.
And it has nothing to do with whether people were applauding
No.
or not. It is, I'm done.
In fact, be careful with the praises of men.
Exactly.
Because men can applaud talent and presentation,
Yes.
but not ministry.
Yes.
You see, like I say, when the worship team are up here and they're doing their thing and they finish and then we call them and say, wow, that was wonderful worship. I was so blessed. That should really worry them. They should not sleep that week. They should fast because they were not doing it to us.
It was unto the Lord. That must
The
be.
greatest thing is, did God get pleased? Because we worship God. You see, the Father said to the Son, he said about Jesus, this is my beloved Son, in
Son.
whom I'm well pleased. It didn't matter what people were thinking about Jesus. The Father was happy with him. And most of the time, Jesus went against the course of men. But the Father was still pleased with him. And that was very important. Yes, it is true that when a man's ways pleases the Lord, he will make his enemies be at peace with him. But our primary focus should be pleasing him that called us. Working worthy of the calling with which we were called. In all lowliness and humility. Okay? So, there may be no praise from men, but you find contentment in having done what you've done.
Yes, sir.
Do not judge the success of your ministry by the praises you receive from men. Judge the success of your service by the contentment received having offered it to God.
That's important because it also helps you discover the will of God for you.
That's right.
You can always know that I am in the will of God because I am fulfilled at what I've done.
That's right.
And I'm happy it went the way it went.
And it ends competition.
Aha.
It ends competition. I would not want to be like you. I would
Yes.
not want to do what you're doing. I just want to find my expression and fulfillment in doing what I'm happy
Wow.
to do.
I never thought of fear as a major characteristic of servanthood,
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
isn't it?
And I believe that it is actually foundational
It is.
because it then becomes the foundation upon which all the other characteristics are built upon.
Yes.
Because it is that fear that produces faithfulness. It is that fear that produces excellence.
Commitment.
Because when you're always working in the eyes of God, you want to give it your all. When you're always working in the eyes of God, you always have to be there. You want to be committed to it.
And give it your best.
Give it your best. Yeah, so that your focus is always that one day he may say, well done, thou faithful servant. And so I believe that fear becomes a driving force. And it becomes also a check for us against any ulterior motive that might come in the process of service. And one of them is the applause of men.
Yes.
You know, the applause of men is very subtle. And it is something that any normal human person would really appreciate
Yeah.
when you're celebrated. And you see sometimes when you're walking in the fear of God, then your consideration is not your comfort. For example, in the story of Joseph, during his circumstances, if you would consider his circumstances at that time, it was an advantage for him to be able to have an affair with the boss's wife. But the fear of God kept him sober. And I believe that the fear of God ought to be the sobering factor even when success is coming.
Yes.
I believe that our service is more under threat when we are succeeding more than when we are failing. Because when we are failing, we are put in check. But when we are succeeding, the capacity to deviate becomes higher than when we are failing. And so that is when the fear of God becomes the grounding factor. that I'm ministering to my church, but my focus is not even them. That I'm, apart from the accountability that they have been able to establish for myself there, that God becomes my accountability. So that my accountability is higher than the one that has been set by the standards of men. I believe that one sieves our service and makes our service to be more authentic. And we are serving in the eyes of God rather than in the eyes of men.
What is it that informs the position of a servant who, after rising and succeeding, quote unquote,
Yes, sir.
whatever that means,
Yeah.
their willingness and commitment to serve dwindles? Why are we not able to see people who have made it in life, succeeded in life, yet continue to serve?
I believe it's the subtlety that comes with the heart of men. And because our heart keeps changing with the dynamics of life. And so we have to keep ourselves in check. That is why when Jesus is giving an example, he say, when people celebrate, you say, I only did what was right for me to do. And so if we are not grounded, the reality is any one of us can change. That is the reality. Any one of us can change. We can change for the better. We can change because things are good. Or we can change because things are also not good. For example, we can change because of Joseph. Things have turned against you. Everything you expected in the journey of your life seems to be going against your dream. The man of God kept saying that we serve in hope. What about when you're serving and the hope seems to be fading away? What about when you're serving and the reward is not in place? That has a potential of turning around our hearts. It has a potential of causing many people to give up. I have met with many people who are great servants, but they have given up. The negative appreciation, the lack of appreciation sometimes, or sometimes even the negative, we call it criticism. That can also affect someone's service. You're giving it your all, but the people are not appreciating it. And so you begin to feel like, because like you said, human beings, we are beings that operate best when there are incentives. And sometimes the incentive is just appreciation. And sometimes the appreciation is not necessarily the material things. Even the words that we receive. Sometimes
Some compliments,
positive remarks, and even care.
a small note on
A
your
small
birthday.
note on your birthday and all that.
Yeah.
When that is not forthcoming,
Yes.
instead all you receive is criticism all the time. It affects us, and it has a potential of turning around our hearts. The flip side of the coin is that when everything seems to be working, there is a very thin line when we begin to feel that my service is out of my own strength, and you begin to take credit for your own service. You see, for example, when David has just killed Goliath, he was actually killing Goliath. His killing of Goliath was in serving the king and serving God. But when the women begins to praise him, there is a potential that he begins to relate to their song, because they were singing, he has killed 10,000, while the king has only killed 1,000. That, if not put in check, has a way of getting into our heads.
Yes.
And possibly even in our hearts, that you begin to feel that then I am better than everybody else. I am lifted higher above all the others.
Now it is time to graduate from what I'm
doing,
serving to now being served.
And like Apostle has said, one of the characteristics is to be able to listen to instructions. Now, how do you want to go and listen to instruction to someone whom people are saying you're better than? How do you want to listen to instruction to someone whom you're performing better than?
You have outperformed him.
You have outperformed him. And so we...
Yet is the one with the instructions.
Yeah, and all that, the underlying
Wow.
spirit behind all that is pride.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we must always underpin is pride.
Please speak to the camera to help this brother or sister who is doing very well. But for some reason or the other, it is getting into their heads. Sometimes when drifting,
never know.
You never know.
Actually, a man of God once told me,
Yes.
we had a conversation with him, and he told me that pride is the only thing that you will never see when you look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. See?
Sometimes we are so proud sometimes even of how humble we are. and
Proudly humble.
proudly humble. And so one of the checks, especially, and I believe that when you're gifted, when you're performing well, when your services are doing great and results are coming well, then you are more predisposed for pride. A man of God once said that for those of us who are super gifted, multi-gifted, we bring in results. We need a higher level of accountability. We need a higher level of accountability. We must expose ourselves to stronger fathers who can point us at the face and speak to us directly. I believe that is not the easy thing to do, and that is where most of us lose it. And I must say this, these are mistakes that we have made in the past.
Yes.
When you begin to look down on where you were and look down on the leadership there, the moment something begins to tell you that you are better than where you were, something is wrong.
Absolutely.
I've met with people who have changed churches because they believe, they were saying, it's no longer my level.
Oh God.
I have outgrown the place. It might sound as very spiritual word,
Yes.
but it is pride speaking in humility. Do you know that pride sometimes can speak in humility?
Yes.
And so we need to really check ourselves, because the reality is, even the greatest people we have today, the presidents that we have, they were raised up with teachers. So there is no way you can outgrow the accountability people around you. And so the moment you want to become independent, and you see, once that spirit comes in, it begins to develop a spirit of independence. And you see it sometimes, it is in a very simple manner. It begins in a very simple manner. For example, you are the one that makes things happen at the praise and worship. So you will come late for practice. And because we need your expertise in the team, you begin to feel that you should not be disciplined as everybody else.
You're above the standard.
You are above the standard set. Then it is an indicator that something is beginning to be wrong.
Oh God.
When I, as a lead pastor, begin to feel like I don't need to go to the prayer meeting that happens on a Tuesday morning for no apparent reason. So I am sitting in my house, but because I feel that I have outgrown that program,
Let them pray.
let them pray.
What is wrong?
I will come when the main thing is happening. Then it means something is beginning to speak to
But
myself.
unfortunate, Apostle, you
Sometimes-
don't know. You don't get to see. Like you said, you don't see this pride.
Sometimes it happens, Bishop, even we who are preachers, you get into a conference and you want to speak in the last session, the plenary session, that you cannot pick the first session in the morning.
Let's start us.
Let's start us
build
begin to
momentum
build
for me.
momentum,
Come
so
on.
we'll pick it up somewhere. It is an indicator that something is actually happening.
I enjoy doing the first one because people are so fresh.
It seems as if you've dealt with certain things.
No, I didn't know I've dealt with certain things, but I enjoy the first session,
Yeah.
even if the climax is in the evening. I want to do it when people are fresh in their thinking and minds are fresh. They're looking forward to this conference. Then I drop.
And you see, that is why we must begin to develop strong accountability systems around us.
Wow.
I need to have, me as an apostle, as the lead minister of our church, I need to have people around me that can point me at the face and tell me, my brother, something is not right over here.
Exactly.
I need to sometimes just go and say, what do you think? Tell me, what are the areas that you think I need to improve on? And so, because like you've said, you see, pride is very subtle. Sometimes you don't see it. And most of the time when we're deviating from the line, even those of us that are now unreachable, that are not accessible anymore, and not necessarily because of the nature of their position and responsibility, but because they build systems around themselves that way, they did not begin that way. It started just little. Little by little, you began feeling like, the same way you begin to feel like now this meeting is so small, tomorrow you will begin feeling like that church is so small. The next day you begin to feel like now the numbers, are you prepared enough for me and stuff like that.
I
You
sent,
just begin growing.
you invite me for your conference, then I send my guys there to keep checking
Check.
how many people are there.
Yeah. And
Then
so sometimes, this is what has worked for me. Sometimes God has intentionally sent me to certain places to do a pride check.
wow.
Can I still go to a school? Sometimes I receive invitations, and the first thing that comes to me, should I send someone? I'm invited in a high school to go and speak. And the first thing that comes to me, I begin to feel like, no, we have outgrown these things.
Let high school be handled
By people who are growing up. I know there is a mentorship thing and all that. There is a mentorship component. But sometimes the Lord just does that intentionally to do a pride check on my heart. Can I still go there?
Wow.
Can I still go there? And when I go there, can I still do ministry without having to downgrade my message?
Wow.
Sometimes I've gone to meetings, I've been invited in meetings, and you meet 5 people.
Yes.
And you feel like you want to really, really, really downgrade your message. But it's not because of communication purposes, but it's because of the environment. And sometimes God has just sent us in such kind of places to do a pride check on our own hearts.
The drift from servanthood is very subtle in nature. And we tend to graduate without a ceremony.
I understand that a son is greater than a servant.
Yes.
But a son serves his father.
Yes.
Sons serve.
Yes.
The difference is the attitude and the mentality. A son serves with a son mentality. A servant serves with a servant mentality. So that change of mentality, then we need to graduate and walk as sons.
We walk as sons, but we don't graduate from serving.
We cannot graduate from servanthood and from service.
Yes.
Because a son serves his father. Malachi says, as a father pities his son who serves him, I will pity you. A father pities his son who serves him, so I will pity you. So God, a father, expects sons also to serve. And that's where he shows them favor and all that. So we cannot graduate from servanthood. The day we do, then a system collapses. A system collapses. I remember one time on this platform, we were talking on a light note, and we say that every posh estate in Nairobi is bordered by slum. Yes. Because they provide services
to the big people.
These people may not live with them, but they cannot do without them.
So they need to be in the neighborhood.
They need to be in the neighborhood.
That's a puzzle.
Within reach. Yes. Within reach. Because you need them to man your gate, to wash your clothes, to cook your food, to cure your fences and all that. You will need them.
And to pick your trash.
And to pick your trash. And to take your children to school and bring them back in the evening. And to pick a newspaper and do shopping for you and all that. And to drive your car. Yes. And so we cannot really do away with servanthood. It is at the core of everything that Jesus exemplified when he came to the earth. He showed us servanthood. He showed us how the mighty can fall down on their knees and serve. He showed us that the way up is going down. That if you want to go up, you must be the servant of all. And so we must take care of the things that the systems of this life are trying to bring upon the church. And you see, you realize most of the time that when we do not have much material things around us, serving is easy for us. So that is, in a sense, it's actually things that come around us that make us find it hard to serve. When we don't have cars and we don't have big houses and we don't have a lot of money and we don't have servants, many people are attending to us, we found it so easy to serve. We walked ourselves to the shop. We did things for ourselves. But then when life became more comfortable and resources started coming in, then our servanthood age became blunt. That is not of God.
Wow.
Jesus expects us to serve. Sometimes in our ministry, I serve the people who are junior to me, and they say, no, Dad, you don't do that. And I open the door for them and tell them, I'm your taxi driver. They say, Dad, don't say that word. I said, but that's what I'm doing now. I'm your taxi driver right now. They said, Dad, don't do that. And I open them and said, Dad, don't open the door for us. You are killing us. I said, I'm not killing you. I'm trying to show you that if I, whom you call a father and senior to you, is opening the door to you and serving you, you ought to go and do much more to other people.
You're modeling.
Yes.
You're not killing them.
No.
You're showing them how it ought to be done.
Yes.
But many times we are denied that privilege because those we serve from our position of leadership feel like we shouldn't do that. And they deny us that right and privilege of just serving and enjoying. Because how else will you know how to serve if you are not modeled into service?
It must be done by example, by those who are ahead of us. Yes. So we are in this town in Kisumu, and I'm with my friend who is a very senior man and is a minister, and we check in the hotel, and he checks 2 rooms. He's paying for them. He's a Muzungu. He's a very senior man, and he's paying for a VIP suite, and then he's paying for an ordinary suite. And then we are bringing our bags in, and it goes without saying, I should go to the ordinary suite. He goes to the VIP. And he said, no. Take his bags there. I said, what am I going to do with this? The place is like the entirety of this hall. What am I going to do with all that? I said, you need. He said, no, you need it. I
So
said,
he
no.
puts you into the VIP,
Yes.
and then he goes into the ordinary.
Suite. Yeah, that's it. That's what he did. My friend, the floor is more comfortable than the bed. You just want to sleep on the floor. Everything's there. There are special servants just serving your room, waitresses and waiters, and everything is personalized and customized for that room.
I know.
And that's the room he gave me, my friend. I couldn't sleep. I just sat on the bed. I mean, my heart was just breaking with humility. How on earth would, he's a white man, I'm black, without even saying many things.
Yes.
He's richer, he
has
senior in age, in ministry, in many other things, and he put me in the best of rooms. He just taught me something, that's what I should do to the people I raise. That's what he taught me.
You have been modeled
Yes.
into the exact approach that you need to have when you get into the same position.
That's right.
That's the kind of model. But now we don't get it because Jesus went down and washed his disciples' feet. Tell me what will happen today if you held a jug of water and a basin to just wash people's hands as a leader.
They would think you're not raising people who can do that.
Yes.
They would think that you are trying to show off. They would not see it as a Christian pattern. They would not see it as a Christian pattern. Christianity is a very servanthood ministry. It's a very servanthood religion.
Do you think, Apostle, that our attitude today is also influenced by our African approach?
African culture, I may not be an expert in it.
Yes.
But the little I know, the younger honored the elder.
Yes.
We were taught that when visitors come, you stand, the visitors sit. We are taught that when you are in a public transport and you see an elderly person standing and you are sitting, you give the seat. We were taught that when your teacher is passing by and you're sitting down, you stand as the teacher passes by. We were taught how to honor our elders and to serve our elders.
Yes.
We were taught that.
Yeah.
And that is correct even in the church.
Mm-hmm.
What does Peter say in 1 Peter 5:5? You younger ones, submit yourselves to your elders. But it goes beyond that. It says, and be ye submissive to one another, that you may be clothed with humility.
Yes.
You see, when the older submit to the younger, that is humility.
That's humility now.
Not when the younger submit to the older. That's normal.
Because it's normal and expected.
Yes.
So it goes without saying.
When you are close to the ground and you fall, we don't even notice.
Yes.
But when you're high and you fall, we hear.
Yes, the knock is big.
You fall with a third. So we need to understand that, yes, our culture inculcated that in us.
Yes.
But the Bible goes beyond that and tells us that the older needs to teach the younger by example. Teach them by example. Teach them to serve others by you serving them. Jesus did it to us and is the best example of servanthood in the New Testament context. Do you know how heaven on earth our wife feels when she wakes up in the morning and you had woken up earlier and made breakfast and brings to her on bed and just said, darling, wake up, welcome to bed and breakfast. Do you know how that scores on your card? 10 out of 10. Because she should be the one doing it.
Now you go ahead and do it.
Do you know how
That's
it
servanthood.
feels that when you're talking with your children, instead of lifting them up to talk to them, you go on your knees to talk to your children?
Yes.
Do you know how powerful it feels for the little child?
It affects their thinking and attitude. They feel very honored, celebrated, and appreciated. Let me ask Apostle Mole.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Please.
If he ever went to the kitchen to
Please
slice
do.
anything.
And would I tell you,
Yes.
anytime now
Yes.
that my sons see me go to the kitchen, they celebrate.
Because you're a better chef.
Yes.
I don't know why, but most men will do. Is it a bias or what?
Well, I don't know. But
It looks as if
we cannot do it.
we cannot do it naturally. But when we get there, the results speak for themselves.
And I think the essence of what we're talking about is a modeling of servanthood.
Yes.
And I believe that that is what has really lacked in our society.
Yes.
That is why leadership has really been exalted so high. That's why people are fighting to get to that place of leadership. People don't magnify the responsibility of leadership, but rather will magnify the privileges
Of leadership.
of leadership. And so that's why it has been made to look so attractive. And I'm saying this with all due respect, we would have security around us. And I know for various reasons in various places there are people who may need them. But some of us may not even need them. But you see, that is what is being seen to be leadership. And so then there is a lack for modeling of servanthood
That's the problem.
in leadership. In my view, I think leadership ought to be a result of servanthood. It ought to be a position given because of how much you're serving, rather than a reward. And so we need to see leadership as an opportunity to serve, bigger and higher, rather than as a privilege to avoid service. Many of us actually now, we are getting into a place where leadership is an escape from actual service, where now you're being served. You have other people who are being served. And so I think the modeling aspect of leadership is what is really, really lacking in our society. And just like you're saying, putting as an example of the house, the husband going to the kitchen, sometimes even doing the dishes and all that.
That's where I struggle most, but I can do all the others. It's dishes that gives me a lot of
But you
hard
see,
time.
the fact that you can go to the kitchen
Yes.
and even struggle with the dishes.
Yes.
I do struggle too
Yeah.
with the dishes. And I remember my daughter was helping me out.
Yes.
But the fact that dad is in the kitchen
It's a motivation.
is a motivation, and it in itself a speech that, wow, so you can be up there and still come down here. And I remember there was a time that some guys came and visited from church, and they find me in the kitchen. And I tell mom, you go host the visitors in the living room while I prepare something for them. And they could not. The reaction is usually the same like Apostle was saying. They will say, no, Pastor, we cannot take this food. You're the one who was cooked. But I said, I am a servant of God. You even call me servant of God. But you see, the indication of what has been pushed in our mind and in the society is that if you're a leader, you must be up there. You must be above all. You don't live on earth. You don't see certain things. You don't experience those things.
There's a lot more to talk about, but our time is up. I will request that we stop at that and look forward to the next program next week on this same station at the same time. The Lord bless you and keep you. My name is Obed Wanjala, and this is Upgrade.